Okay, guys, in this episode, we are going to read the emails. I left off in the last video telling you guys how I emailed my aunts, finally emailed my aunts to let them basically know that I knew what was going on with everything. So I am going to read you guys the email. It says, Debbie, FKA, formerly known as Debbie Blank, and Betty Blank. The reason there is two names up there for my Aunt Debbie is because she's been married more than once and she changed her name after her second divorce. And so there is multiple names for her. So her name is not the same as it was on the will. So I wrote, I am writing this letter because I would like to clear up a few things that I have been hearing and seeing in the past few weeks. I also want to explain to you why I am objecting to my mom's will and what I'm hoping to accomplish. As far as my objection goes, as you can see in the court documents, my objection basically says that there is a conflict of interest as far as your representation goes. Stephen used Mr. Bad when he improperly filed for letters of administration. You guys are also using him to file your petitions. And since they are separate interests in the same matter, it causes a conflict of interest for you and your attorney. None of this was ever discussed with me, who by all intents and purposes shares a 50% interest in the estate. I filed my mom's will based on two factors. One being that it is the proper thing to do when somebody dies, testate with a will. Reason I said that is because they seem to be under the impression that I filed the will because they were the executors. No, that's not why I filed my mom's will when she died. I filed her will because that's what you do when somebody dies and they have a will. That's what you do. So anyway, I wrote, I filed my mom's will based on two factors. One being that it is the proper thing to do when somebody dies, testate with a will. She had a will and Stephen knew this prior to filing his affidavit that claimed he did a diligent search for a will and determined none existed. Yet he purposely chose to ignore it and pretend it didn't exist. As you can see from the court documents, he was lying. Secondly, I filed the will because I wanted a document in the courts that stated that my mom's wishes were to divide up her assets 50-50 between her two children. Who the executors were was completely irrelevant at that point in time. My mom and dad paid Frank, the attorney, Esquire, to draft their wills for a reason, to protect me and my brother and their assets. Why would we want to pretend there was no will? My personal objection to you two being executors, which doesn't matter as much in a legal sense, is that I tried to reach out to you a total of 5 times after I filed the will, and neither of you responded. I haven't spoken to either of you in a total of 6 months. Clearly, you have continued and good communication with my brother. You are all using the same lawyer, and he and his family are invited over for holidays, friends on Facebook, etc. With that said, am I supposed to think my opinion will matter when it comes to making decisions for the estate when no one will speak to me, no matter how cordially I approach you? I'm sorry, but I am not taking that chance. Unfortunately, a lot of trust has been lost. Those are my mother's things too. It's bad enough her car was already repossessed after I was being told all the bills were being paid. See attached email from my brother. I have done extensive reading and research, and I have a full understanding of the estate process. Also, my lawyer has about 30 years experience in these types of matters, and he has thoroughly explained to me the options and the possible consequences and outcomes, again, in which I fully understand. I may be wrong, but it's my personal belief that neither of you have even personally dealt with Mr. Bad, and instead you are communicating with him by proxy. And I just want to pause there. What I meant by that is I do not believe my aunts ever even spoke to this guy or contacted him. I strongly believe Satan was the one doing the communication, and I later found out that that was exactly the case. Anyway, had you been in contact with him, then you'd probably know all of what I'm about to say. I don't know who informed you that I was looking to hire a public administrator, but that is not what I'm hoping for. What I am hoping for is to make things fair for both people who have a shared interest in the estate, me and Steven. I am not looking for anything more than my 50% share and to have some say in what happens to her belongings and property. That 50% interest gives me every right to know what's going on. I have asked several times to sit down and discuss these matters as adults, and all the involved parties refuse to communicate with me. My lawyer has already explained this to Mr. Bad in phone calls over the last 2 Fridays. Contrary to what you believe, the ball is entirely in your court at this point in time. It seems your lawyer hasn't fully explained all of your options. If you both truly are concerned with my mother's hard-earned money and property, as you allege to be, and you don't want to see her assets being squandered and wasted on lawyers, you can both very easily assure that doesn't happen. You do have the option to resign as executors, and that would help expedite the process, assuring no more assets are wasted and or squandered. In that event, my attorney and Stephen's attorney would then amicably agree and request that the courts appoint me and Stephen as co-executors. If you want to do something that, quote, really matters for my mom, that would be your best option. Stephen and I are grown adults. In 1996, when my mom and dad wrote their wills, there was no way they could foresee the breakdown and deterioration of our relationships. If you'd like to hear what my mom's real and more current last wishes were, you are more than welcome to contact the lawyer who came up to the hospital to rewrite her will and fill out power of attorney forms. My punctuation is atrocious here. Anyway, he is granted to work pro bono with cancer patients at Stony Brook University Hospital. His name is blank and he can be reached at, I gave his address, his phone number, and the firm that he worked for, I think. Not his address, the firm he worked for. Her wishes as of November 10th, 2016 were to make Stephen and I co-executors, but unfortunately she died before that can happen. Since me and Stephen are grown adults and neither of you have any interest in her estate and do not plan on being compensated for your service, then there should be no reason as to why you wouldn't step aside and let him and I handle it. If you choose to pursue your roles as executors, then it will be dragged out until next November. And there is no doubt about it. In an email sent to me a few weeks ago, Stephen seemed very confident that I was going to lose my objection. Just know, if I was going to lose my objection and I had no chance, the judge easily could have denied my objection right then and there when it was entered and appointed you as executors, which is the truth. And my attorney even told me that. If we don't hear back from you in a timely manner, then we are going to make a motion to have a temporary public administrator appointed so that the bills that have been piling up for the last 6 months can finally be paid. He or she will be compensated for their service at a rate of 1 to 3% of the entire value of my mom's estate. The decision is up to you. Just know that should you choose to fight my objection, it is going to be very costly for all the involved parties. Thank you, Leanna. And then I went on to say, P.S., hold on. As far as the bills go, they have not been being paid by my brother. My aunt, Debbie, told my aunt Dana that my brother had laid out like $12,000 or some astronomical amount of money which was not true at all, and that he couldn't pay the bills, and he told them that he was paying the bills. So I wanted them to see that he was lying even to them. So I said after the car was repossessed, I started to look into everything, and it wasn't easy. I cannot see the bills because the billing addresses have been changed on most, if not all, of the bills. The billing addresses for her Honda has been being sent to Mr. Bad's office on, and I just said where it was. The rest are going to, and I put my brother's address. I was unaware of this until recently. Switching addresses and or withholding the mail was never discussed with me. Every time I try to speak to anyone on any accounts, I am told that Stephen's representative, Satan, and I used her ex-husband's last name because that's her legal name, has the information and has already notified / spoken to them. There are recordings of all phone calls to major utility companies, money market accounts, banks, etc., which can be obtained. Had I been able to see these statements, I would have made sure my mom's car didn't get repossessed, since there was only around $5,000 left on her loan. Since Mr. Bad was receiving the bills, it's possible he could be held liable. I do plan on checking with the Bar Association if that's even okay for him to do. I spent 3 days making phone calls and requesting statements. As far as I could see, the only bills that he had paid was possibly 2 months of the homeowner's insurance. I paid the past due balance that was due March 20th and the rest of the balance for the year, so the house is insured until next March. The only other bill that was paid was a partial payment to PSEG Electric. No other bills have been paid, period. If Stephen has been paying the bills, why is every single bill in default? You can see the attached statements. Also, there's no need to worry about the personal belongings in my mom's car because they have been removed. As for her taxes, she already paid half the year. I wrote to the receiver of taxes for Suffolk County, and while her current taxes are due, she has 3 years before she is penalized. Also, the small home equity loan she took out to redo her bathroom will not cause her house to foreclose. I don't know who told you that. The worst that will happen is a lien will be placed on her property. Once someone is appointed as executor, temporary administrator, the loan will be paid off and the lien will be removed. There is no need to panic. And then I sent her pictures of everything that I, had gathered, all the evidence. So the Honda account where the address was changed, the PSEG bill where, the 2 payments that were made since my mom passed away, her homeowner's insurance, her car insurance, and then the emails where my brother said that he was going to be paying the bills until an estate account was established. And then, him saying that he's not paying all these bills that he wasn't even paying anyway. And, again, they took all of my mom's mail to basically keep me in the dark so I wouldn't know what was going on. But little did they know, Leanna's pretty smart. She figured out a way to get the answers that she needed. So, okay, that's the email. Pretty good email, right? I'm pretty proud of that email, I gotta say. It was a pretty good one. So I kind of backed them into a corner, and it felt good. I felt like I had the upper hand for the first time in the whole entire situation. I wanted everybody to know I have your guys' number. So I knew there was a bunch of shady shit going on behind the scenes with my aunt and my brother and all this shit, right? But I was just like, that's it. You guys are not gonna bully me, manipulate me, scare me, threaten me. Done with your scare tactics. I'm done with your shit. Here's what you guys could do if you really want to do something that matters for my mom. You could resign. I didn't hear back from them, okay? It was a couple of days later. It was a Friday. I'm home. I don't even know what I was doing, right? My attorney calls me. He's like, I talked to your brother's attorney today, and guess what? Your aunt's going to agree to resign. Wow. Dude, I can't even tell you guys what that moment felt like, okay? I didn't want to get my hopes up because I was like, what if this is like not real? What if they're just bluffing? What if they're just saying that? Like, I didn't want to get myself overexcited, but I was like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. But he said that they had agreed to resign. And the deal from there on was that my attorney was going to write up an agreement basically saying that my aunts resigned and that my brother and I agreed to step up as co-executors of my mom's estate. And I'm going to leave that one there, and I'll be back.